Welcome to Business Unveiled, the podcast designed to help you thrive in the creative community. Here's your host, events and productivity consultant, Angela Profit.
What's up, GSD leaders? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Business Unveiled, where we share expert tips and secrets from top creative industry professionals. You know, we're going to take you behind the scenes of our experiences, share with you what we've learned from them, and how it's made us stronger. Because no one said it's easy owning a business, right? But it's a lot more fun when you've got a strong support team around you. And that's exactly what we do at GSD Creative. We're right there by your side. And I'm so excited that you've chosen this podcast to take the first step in growing a productive, profitable, and successful, wildly successful business within the hospitality and creative industry. Today's episode is being brought to you by GSD Academy, where I personally walk you through my 4-step process with personalized videos. I give you downloadable templates and so many resources. So if you're serious about changing your life and your business and you're ready to GSD, that is get shit done, go to bit.ly/GSD Academy. Hi, y'all. It's Angela, and I'm back for another episode of Business Unveiled. And you are in for a treat today because we're going to be talking to Jessica Zimmerman, who just came out with a new book. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear about the book and her crazy journey to getting the book. I'm like, is it on Audible? And so she'll have to share with you guys like the craziness story of how things have come about. And so Jessica, she's an educator, an author, a wife, a mom. She's a serial entrepreneur, like most of us, like me and most of you listening. And she teaches her students and followers how to have healthy business boundaries. Amen. So if you're a woman, and I say women because I feel like most women, we have the hardest time with boundaries and saying, no, thank you, or this is outside of my scope of work or services or whatever it's called. But she's going to talk to you about how to invest in yourself and how to create a business and a life that you love, because that's what life is about, right? Like, you should love your life. And if you don't, you really need to listen up and pay attention. So she's been featured in People, Forbes, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, Inc., and her new book, ready, is called Sleeping with a Stranger. It has hit Wall Street Journal's bestseller, USA Today bestseller, and Barnes & Noble bestseller, and Amazon #1 bestseller. So I'm super excited to bring her on. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yay! So before we jump in and talk all about the book and the craziness of the journey and getting there, take us back. Like, where did you decide, like, okay, this entrepreneur journey thing is for me? And tell us a little bit about how you grew up and where did all this stuff start?
Well, basically, if we rewind all the way to when I was 3 years old, I was in a car accident that it took the life of my only sister. And so she died and I survived. And so then there was this, this living the rest of my life kind of with this knowing. I mean, people say all the time, tomorrow isn't promised, or, you have to live each day like it's your last. And I just really know that to my core. I mean, I just know that to be true. And so I have always been frustrated when I was doing things that I didn't enjoy. I didn't always love school. I hated college.
Me too, girl.
I just was like, why am I wasting my time doing this? For me, it was all about time. I just know that time is my greatest commodity, and I wanted to be in control of my own time, if I'm being completely honest. And I didn't want to have to ask permission to take off. I'm obviously, like everyone else in the world, obsessed with traveling. And I just, 2 weeks out of the year just didn't really seem like enough for me. I
Right.
thought, gosh, I just want to see so much more. And I want, if one day I choose to have children and a husband of my own, like, then I want to be able to attend their soccer games and dance recitals and not have to ask permission for these things. Permission to live my life, really.
Yep.
And the only way I knew how to do that was to own my own business. And so I um, knew from a young age that I wanted to own my own business. I had no idea what that looked like. I had no idea what that really meant. I didn't even care what that business was. I would have sold knives for a living. I almost did. I just wanted to be my own boss. That's all that mattered. But I also noticed that when I left to go to college, my mom really struggled with that because her other daughter had passed away. She kind of poured all of her energy into her one surviving child, which was me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I leave. And she didn't have a job outside of the home. Her job was, to raise me, which had to have been the most difficult
Yeah.
job.
Aw.
But I really saw how hard that was for her when I left. And so part of me wanting to own my own business, aside from having that kind of control over my time, was also, if I'm being honest, a bit of emotional insurance. I mean, there was
Mhm.
something in me that said, if one day you lose everyone you love, you've got to have something else that is just yours that no one can take away. And, a business is that for me. And so that's, I mean, it's not all the typical drivers, but that's what landed me here.
Yeah, but it's everything that like your past and it drives you to do different things and to do things where some people would say, "Oh, give yourself a better life, give yourself." And I love it the way you say it like that, like really building the security of like insurance. People tell me they're like, "You sell a security blanket, to our clients like if we're doing events or if we're running sales funnels and ads." And it's like I'm like I'm just educating people so that they understand like what's coming, but we can't always be in control of that. Like there's a much bigger power that's in control of that, but it's how you take that experience and turn it into something amazing. And like that's what you've done. And we all know, like those of us who are seasoned entrepreneurs, like nothing's freaking easy. Like there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears behind the scenes of this. And I mean, girl, you've been through some stuff. You've been through
A little
some
bit, a
real
little bit. Well,
stuff.
we all have. I mean, we all have our stuff. We all have our journeys and everything. But it really is what prepares you for what you're ultimately supposed to do. And I really
Yeah.
do look at it that way. And I think when you can get to a place in your life where you can look at it that way, things become a little easier. Even the hard times, become a little bit. You realize it's a season that it will, it's just preparing you for something, greater. And so, yeah.
Did you really start out like on your entrepreneur journey? I know that you were an amazing floral designer, have done beautiful work.
Thank you.
And even before you were an educator and before you were an author, was that your first love of like florals and events and
Oh gosh, no.
how? No?
No. I mean, it's funny that you say that because like I said, the only thing I cared about was owning my own business. And I almost bought a kitchen supply store. And
Shut up.
no, I'm serious. And I loved it. I loved everything about that store. I mean, I knew every gadget. I knew, every knife. I knew how to clean it. I knew everything. And but the year that we went to purchase that was the same year that the housing crisis happened. And so for the first time in a very long time, banks were no longer allowed to loan you, any more money than what an inventory is worth and then slash that inventory in half. Well, this kitchen
Interesting.
store was, it was small and, the inventory total in the whole place, I mean, it wouldn't have added up to about $100,000. And when you're looking to buy a business that would be 10 times more than that, a bank can't do that anymore this time at the the housing market crisis time. And so I left because I didn't need to stay there if I wasn't going to get to buy it. I had worked there for 4 years prior in preparation of buying it. And so that felt like, what a waste of time, for me, like, but what was interesting was a couple weeks later, I was at a Christmas party and a lady came up to me and she said, I'm looking to sell my business. I'd like for you to come work for me for a year and then think about buying it. And she didn't know anything about what had happened with the kitchen store or anything like that. And she owned a wedding rental business.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. So I went and worked for her. I ended up buying it. And we did rentals and we would do just a little bit of flowers on the side. Like I'm talking maybe 6 weddings a year where there were flowers.
Gotcha.
And then that kind of grew a little bit. And I started to realize, I failed so many times during the first like 4 years of that business. I can't even really explain it, but I really went into it with the intention that I think many entrepreneurs do, which is the best intentions in the world, but we just don't know any better. We just don't know any better. And we believe the myth that you have to kill yourself for 5 years before you ever see a profit. And you have to work, all the time and you can't pay yourself any money. Everything goes back into the business. Like I believed all of that. And so for those first 4 years, I just, I was working 16-hour days. I didn't bring home a penny. And when I finally had, I had my daughter and then I got real serious about, okay, I can't, this is the opposite of why you went into business, was to work all the time and never get paid. You need to figure this out. And so I got a loan and did all the education that I could, learned all that I could, and basically learned the foundation of business, which I didn't have. And that really turned things around for me. And I just basically bought myself time to learn as much as I could, to read as much as I could, to listen to as much as I could. And that's when I realized, wow, floral has a really incredible profit margin. And these rentals really don't. And so I got rid of the rentals and I focused only on floral. And I still don't know the names of, 90% of the flowers out there. I just kind of would sell myself and sell the fact that I can make you a beautiful bouquet. I kind of honed a craft for something, but I felt very out of place a lot of that, of that time of my career, because people that I would meet in the wedding world, they were, in it and all in it. If you told them they could never touch a flower again, they would be like, well, just end it now for me.
Right.
Because I am obsessed with all the flowers and I want to talk about color palettes all day. And I was like, if I have to talk about color palettes again,
I'm gonna pull my hair out.
And so it was and I remember just thinking, why am I in this field? Like, why am I in this industry? And it's not that I don't have an appreciation for it. I just, once I kind of, I'm just going to say this as bluntly as I know how to say it. Yeah. Once you kind of master something, it's like, for me, I don't want to do it anymore. It's like, what's the point?
Me neither.
It's like, I get bored and what am I going to do? Just continue to do beautiful weddings that have different colors and I don't know, like it had been, my work had been featured in, the best of the best in the industry, Martha Stewart weddings and all that. And I just thought, I'm done. Like, and I also believe that those clients deserve to have someone who is so excited about their wedding. And I just wasn't there anymore.
Yep. I know exactly how you feel. It's funny because my family had a venue growing up. My uncle started in flowers and he still does flowers like to this day for fun. Even though he sold his shop, retired 5 times, he still does it for fun. And people are like, even though I know how to do flowers doesn't mean I should be doing flowers. Like we'll do it every once in a while, but like we have a floral design company that we completely outsource everything. But it's like, I'm like you, I can go to the wholesaler and like spend a little bit of time in there, pick up. I know how to make it. I know what looks good, but I couldn't tell you a damn name of anything.
Right. Totally.
It's just like, I just know it looks good. And like, that's not really important.
Right.
So, But what I learned and appreciated, especially from like watching my uncle, it was very profitable, if you're in the right area. Because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'll just go to Costco and, pick up these tula. And I'm like, you're not paying for it's not about the flowers. There's so much labor. There's so much love, all the containers, all the washing, all the dishwashing, all the drying, all the Windexing, all the gloves. It's so much work. And then you have to pray that, like, if the weather is shitty outside, like your flowers aren't going to flop and look like they're dead or something. I mean, it's very, people are like, why don't you do flowers? Like, you know how to do it. I'm like, because I don't want to. Like, it's too much of a legality. And like, when you're planning and designing and overseeing things, like, I don't need to be doing it. Like, I can outsource that. It is a taught skill. Like, some people just wake up and they're good at it, but you can teach people like how to put the bouquets together. And so how did you get yourself out of that? Like, when you knew you were done and you're like, I want to be an educator. Well, I know that you were having kids, and then.
Oh yeah. And I did not want to be an educator either. Like, this is what's so funny about this whole journey is so I guess it was 2014 is when I took out that loan to kind of learn everything that I could about business. And I think basically any business can be profitable if you know how to price and you know how to spend. And then you've got your systems in place for your business and everything. I mean, you just have to treat your business like a business. And I think a lot of people treat their business like a hobby. And you have to ask yourself, am I a business or a hobby? And really get honest about that. And so once I decided to come from a place of like, no, I'm a business and I'm going to do this, it was really easy for me to say no to a client or to say, absolutely, I can't price it any less. It has to be this. You need to come down on your expectation. You know what I mean? It's like going to a grocery store. You cannot have 3 carts filled with milk and eggs and bacon and all the things and tell the cash, the person at the cash register that you only want to pay $20. They're going to say, I'm sorry, you need to go put
your shit back.
And like, that's the same thing with weddings. And so I was able to really get confident because I knew business now. I knew it backwards and forwards, and I was able to be really confident and stand behind it. And I realized that people were attracted to that, and they even ended up, spending less in other areas so that they could spend more with me. And I realized this is kind of crazy. Like, even after like a year, I mean, I went from profiting $0 to profiting 6 figures in a year, and it was insane. And I thought, and I'm all about utilizing a low season. And our low season was always January, February, March. So after 1 year of kind of doing this and actually making money for the first time and paying myself a salary for the first time, I thought, I'm just going to write down what I did. I'm just going to write it down. And I didn't even know at this time about online courses or anything. I literally wrote it down in a sense where it was almost like a memoir. Like, it was just like, here's what I was doing, and this is what failed. And so this is what I ended up doing, and this is what worked. And this is, it was almost like you were a fly on the wall in my business. And I think I had 300 Instagram followers. I did not have a newsletter list or anything. And I thought, why don't we just sell that? Like, let's just put it as a PDF, like a locked PDF, and I'm going to sell it. And if I sell a couple, that'll be great. And I sold 44 of them.
That's great.
And I did not plan on doing it but that one time. But after that, people started emailing me their testimonies that I did not even ask for, but they were just like, awesome. Jessica, I, had never booked a floral order over $2,000. And a week after I read your program, I am doing $20,000 floral orders. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, and I knew that it worked for me, but you just never know how that's going to translate for other people. Right. And then I would have people say, I've taken all these other courses, but man, yours is the only one who I feel like is giving me everything. And I think the reason for that is because I knew I wasn't going to do weddings and flowers forever. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I wasn't. So there wasn't a part of me that felt I needed to protect anything.
Right.
I was really willing to share it all. And I ended up talking to someone in marketing about the program is called The Business Behind the Blooms.
Mhm.
And I ended up talking to someone about it, and she was like, whoa, hold up. You sold 44 copies just like by posting it on your Instagram, and you have 300 Instagram followers. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, then this is like a needed program.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the very first time I went to sell it, I sold it on a webinar. And what's interesting about a webinar is when you are teaching it, you don't see anyone who's in there. You just see a
Mhm.
reflection of yourself. It's like looking in a mirror. And when I was little, after my sister died, that is how I would entertain myself at night. I would go sit in front of a floor length mirror and I would talk to myself, and I would almost like ask myself questions and answer back. And so when
Aw.
I saw that, I thought, oh, this is the first time since this whole business journey has happened that I feel right where I'm supposed to be. And this feels
Mhm.
comfortable, and this feels familiar, and this feels like I've been preparing my whole life for this moment, if that makes sense.
Aw. Yeah, totally. Totally. So I'm
So
assuming the
that's what
webinar
gave me
was amazing.
that's what gave me the direction to kind of go, okay. And I liked it so much better. I mean, it was so much more. That really is who I am at my core. I'm an oversharer. I'm going to learn. I'm going to experience. I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to share.
Yep.
And I am not scared to have those really raw, vulnerable conversations. And I was able to do that with business. And I think I think that prepared me for what I'm doing now, which is talking really, honestly and vulnerably about my personal life, which is, Sleeping with a Stranger, my book.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about your book. Like first off, how did you pick the name? And what's the guts? Like if you had 30 seconds in an elevator and someone was like, "Tell me about your book." What would you say?
It's about, I believe that in life, we're all kind of handed a script when we're born, and it's like, this is how you're meant to behave, and this is what's expected of you. And it's kind of like a coming of that, of finally recognizing, oh, this is a script that I've been given, and I don't really believe everything in the script, and my husband doesn't believe everything in the script. And now we've been put in a situation. My husband got really, really ill 6 weeks after my twin boys were born,
Oh
and
no.
he was a financial advisor. He had fully supported us for 11 years. And then um, I had to kind of step in and take care of my 2-year-old daughter, my newborn twins, and now for the first time ever, not just bring home a paycheck, but support this whole family while we're trying to
Wow.
figure out what's wrong with him, because we couldn't figure it out. And he was in and out of the hospital. And it basically is, um, you get so broken down to where, once you come out, once you finally see the light, you kind of don't recognize each other, you don't recognize yourself. And you have to ask yourself, like, is this the person I was always meant to be, or did
Mhm.
I become this person because of our situation? Or, like, I've now been cracked open.
Mm.
What do I do moving forward? It is the most honest, uh, and vulnerable and raw that I've ever been. Where, I mean, I talk about things that, sorry, this is more than 30 seconds. I don't know how
No,
to
no,
do
no, no.
that.
Tell
I don't
me. I
know
want
how
to
to do
know.
30 seconds. But, I talk about things like, I mean, do you have sex when your spouse is sick? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, we didn't. Well, how long did that go on? Or what is it like when you're trying to, uh, you know, like, I think there's so many entrepreneurs that, they get to a point. Listen, I could say some stats for you, right? I could be like,
Yeah.
I work 6 hours a day now. I mean, sometimes I only work two. And, I've brought in revenue of 7 figures. I can say all that stuff, but it's
Mhm.
like, what's really going on behind the
Right.
scenes? What drove that? And I think that is where a lot of female entrepreneurs aren't really being honest.
Right.
They're just showing the good part. And I really wanted to show the yucky behind the curtain. Here's what was actually happening. So all that time that you followed and you saw this business growing, let's take a peek behind and see what was really happening, because it wasn't pretty. And I don't think it's I think often in life, it's hard to have everything pretty at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But you know what I'm finding, like the older I get, and some people put things out there, like a friend of mine screenshot something on Facebook and sent it to me, another business owner that is from Nashville, and she's like, holy shit, like, would you ever say this or put this out here? Like, I just don't know what to think about that. And I'm like, well, first off, like, no, I wouldn't, because I don't talk like that. And secondly, like, if people want to put their stuff out there like that, like, whatever. But to me, I'm like, it looks like someone's hurting and they're asking for either empathy or they're asking for help. That's just her way of asking for help, to let people know like something's wrong. Like she's angry about something. Like, I'm all about the psychology. That's what I went to school for. I worked in a mental
Yes.
health hospital. Like, there is something behind the words that people will hide behind. But when you put out a book, when you put out podcast, when you read your own book, you have to tell them about what you did with, I'm like, is it on Audible? Which is a total sidebar conversation. But it's like, you were so dedicated. You're like, I am going to make this shit happen. Pandemic, global, kick me out of the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm going to find another way to do it, which, by the way, let's pause and tell them how you did it to get it on Audible, like in 48 hours.
Basically, it was, I knew when I wrote this book, Sleeping with a Stranger, I knew that I wanted to do it as excellently as possible. I wanted it to be treated with the same care, respect, and production level as any book would be that was with a big name publisher, which, by the way, I could have gone with a publisher. I chose to self-publish. And when you do that, there's some benefits and there's also some struggles. And one of them is really having to kind of fight for these things. And people would go, you don't, I mean, it's you don't need to do the Audible thing. You're fine. Just sell it paperback. And I was like, no, I'm going to have hardcover. There's going to be ebook. There's going to be paperback, and there's going to be an audiobook. And I flew to LA. I had a meeting out there, and I was going to do I had a session scheduled to have 5 days to record the audiobook. Then the pandemic happens and everything gets closed down.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel is like, we're closing. You've got to get on a flight back home if you want to get home. So I took the red eye home, and on the whole way home, I'm finding connections in Nashville. The second I land, I drive to Nashville to a guy who says he'll do it. He's got 2 days and that's it. And then everything's shutting down. And so I recorded the whole thing in 2 days.
Y'all, that's crazy, but like amazing.
But that's the stuff that people aren't really honest about. You know
exactly.
what I mean? And that's
determination.
Show is that, I mean, yes, I was able to grow this business, but it also was driven so much out of fear. It was driven so much out of fear out of talk about psychology. I mean, I go to therapy once a week. And I share about what causes me to start going to therapy in the book. But basically, it's I don't know. It's just interesting. I forgot where I was going with that. Angela, you're going to have to remind me.
No. I was just saying how, like, which, by the way, y'all, therapy is probably one of the most needed situations. It's funny how you and I share so, like, I haven't even gotten to listen to the book yet. I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm going to go get it tonight. But how we share so much in common, because my sister got really sick years ago, and we were like on this hunt, and she has 4 kids, and people saw what they wanted in the forefront. They're like, oh, you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't understand what life is like your life looks so perfect and so fun and so easy, and you go to all these glamorous places and private islands. And like, little do they know that I was working my ass off to make more money so I could like help my family and then help like with the kids. And then when we finally got a diagnosis, and it's like, oh, you're probably going to die in 6 months. Like, literally, it was like, do these doctors have a pulse?
Right.
Like, do they have a heart? Like, how can you tell, like, family and a mom of 4 little kids, like, no, she's not ready to die. And like,
right.
How do you find alternatives, and how do you go searching on that journey? And it's not something we wanted to publicize. And I definitely didn't want to talk about it, because if people asked me about it, like half the time, in the first year of like shock, I just wanted to burst into tears. But it's like I couldn't do that because I had to be the rock, um, the hard spot, so my sister wouldn't lose it. And so the kids could primarily live somewhat of a normal life, although, her 5-year-old now, he thinks that it's normal that everyone's mommy is in a wheelchair. And so like last year, right before he started kindergarten, he said to somebody, and all the moms talk and stuff. And he asked the kids at preschool how they were going to decorate their mommy's chair for Halloween. Cause like every holiday they'll decorate their mom's chair.
Sure.
And that's when, like at 4 years old, like the teacher was like, should I explain to him, like, not everybody's mommy is in a wheelchair. In fact, you're the only kid in this class whose mommy is in a wheelchair and who can't walk and who can't bathe herself or wipe herself or do any of that, to be frank. And so it's this whole new norm. But once I did, start talking about it a little bit, people were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like they compare your life to their life. And I'm like, that is so wrong.
Oh, Angela,
Like,
you're
don't
gonna love
ever
this
compare.
book.
I'm like, don't ever compare, because you
Yeah.
never know what's going on with people.
Right.
Like I learned that young, working in the
Yes.
mental health. It's like these people would walk in. I'll never forget Jane, my favorite patient that actually made me quit. Who walked in, she was like beautiful, put together, stylish clothes, like expensive car, beautiful husband, beautiful 2 kids. Like, what's wrong with her?
Right.
And she was bipolar. Like, I didn't realize any of this until we got into therapy. And I'm like, holy shit, you were batshit crazy.
Yeah.
You think these things in your head.
Right.
So what you see on the outside and then what's going on the inside, it's like, don't judge people.
Yeah.
So
gosh, it's so true. I had a friend who read Sleeping with a Stranger, and this is a friend. This is like, I call her a mom friend. By the way, I'm really sorry about your sister and everything that you had to go through.
But she's still alive, So
I
it's
know.
her new norm.
But it doesn't make it easy. I mean, it's a new normal. It's a new normal, but it doesn't make it, you still have grief though, is what people don't understand, because you still have grief of a life that is gone, that you didn't expect. Like your sister not in a wheelchair is not an option. You know what I mean? And so like when you were growing up and you thought about you and your sister, in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, she wasn't in a wheelchair.
Nope.
And so there is a death in a way. There is a grieving that has to happen. And I think that until you've been through it, you just don't understand. You just don't get it, which is why the proper response is always, I'm so sorry. That is it. Not, I know how you feel, not, don't compare, losing your dad to someone losing their mom. It isn't the same. I mean, you can't even compare you losing your mom to someone else losing their mom, because you had different dynamics perhaps, or whatever. I mean, I am so sorry is really the only acceptable thing to say, in my opinion. I think that when people are going through a tough time, they just want to be heard. I think they just want a soft place to land, and they want a place to be able to safely express how they're feeling without judgment. And that is why you said I didn't really say a whole lot. The reason we don't say a whole lot is we don't want to hear it back. We don't want to. We've got enough on our plate. We have enough on our plate. We don't need to hear anything else. But going back to the psychology for just a second, it was for me, building the business that I have was built out of fear. And that is what was never told when all that marketing stuff was going on, saying like, you can go from this to this in 1 year. You know what I mean? Like all of that. I wasn't also putting in, fine print at the bottom of those ads. I wasn't saying, by the way, I'm scared out of my mind that any day my husband's going to die and that I'm going to be left alone with these 3 kids. So if I don't sell these courses now, like, I don't know what I'll do, because I don't know anything else to do. I mean, none of that's being said. And so I think that it's a real honest look about how you just never know what you're capable of until you're backed into a corner. And also what will you do backed into a corner? And I think for me, there wasn't an option. It was that it was like something, a switch flipped in me that was, there is no failure. There is no, like, there was a drive like I'd never known. I'd never seen before in my life. I almost didn't recognize who I was. But the stranger in the book, you asked how I came up with the title. My husband lost 50 pounds. I don't want to give the whole thing away, but he became unrecognizable to me. And there was a moment where I was like, I'm sleeping with a stranger. But then, as the book continues, you realize how much of a stranger I became to myself as well.
Gotcha.
Because when you are backed up against a wall and you begin to get shrill and short and mean. And, I'm a pretty nice gal, but I was unrecognizable to most people in my life because I'd just become mean. And I think that's what happens when you stop taking care of yourself.
Was it mean or mad? Like you were just mad, which makes you mean.
Yeah, but I mean, all of it. I was exhausted. Yeah. I was mad. I was frustrated because here I was, and I had this role all of a sudden where I was like the full-time provider, and my husband was ill. And it was like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to, to be, 33 at the time, and I had to, I remember I went to he had a gastro issue that we could not figure out. I mean, there's a line in the book that goes, it took a gastro doctor, a guru, a holistic doctor, and a New Zealand doctor. Like it took all these different people to figure out what was wrong with him. But we finally figured it out. I'm not going to give that away, but I remember being 33 and being at Kroger, and this is how the book opens up. But I looked down at my grocery cart that was filled with newborn Pampers, potty training pull-ups, and men's Depends.
Aww.
And I looked down at that cart and I thought, could my life get any shittier?
Yeah.
I mean, and you're 33. And once again, there's that grief of going, when I said for better or for worse 10 years ago, like I knew there might be a moment where this shit might happen, but like, I thought we'd be like 80s. You know what I mean? I didn't think this was going to happen at 33. And so, there's just, you have to kind of grieve that. And so, and then my husband became someone who I didn't know anymore. And so in a way, I felt I was mad at him because his body was still there, but who he was, like his soul, who I knew, wasn't there anymore. And so it was like, I want to grieve you, but I can't grieve you because you're like a skeleton walking around the halls of our home. It was just hard. Like it was just hard. But but the book is also really funny because it takes all of this it's a very serious, you can just go read some reviews. But it's serious content, but said with a sense of humor, because you can't not have a sense of humor about that. I mean, what 33-year-old has that many diapers? Like, it's crazy.
That is.
You have a 5-person family and 4 of them are in diapers. Like, that's just, it was like, well, when's my turn? Like, I just, like, I don't know. So anyway, there's some comedy in there for sure.
So I was going to say, like, which again, like, I think you and I both know just from our experiences, like, people kind of cover up like the truth about what it truly is like to be a caretaker. And if you don't have a sense of humor and you don't laugh at some of the stuff, it's like, I would just go insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, I might as well just get in my sister's handicap van and drive it off and like let it tank.
Yes.
Because it's like, you have to have a sense of humor, but there are so many tears and so many moments where it's like you said, I did not sign up for this. What the fuck is happening to me? Exactly. Why are you doing this, God?
Exactly.
Absolutely. And we don't know, but like all I can, my sister and her, I think he's a hero husband because of the way he like puts up and deals and handles all this stuff. I'm just like, gosh, like kudos to you. I just don't even see how you handle it.
Right.
And, it does become a norm and you do get into a rhythm. But there in the first year or so, it was like we had lots of family therapy, lots of family counselors.
Mhm.
And my sister was very angry and she was mad and she's always the victim. And why does it have to happen to her? And I'm like, everything happens for a reason, but we have to look at the blessings that are there. We don't know why, but
Right.
apparently this is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
But for you, starting out being a caretaker, like, did you always have that mindset of like, okay, I'm just going to laugh at this? Or like, really, what was the truth behind that?
No, I think I can laugh about it now, but I think at the time I was just in a state of survival.
Mm.
Like I said, I mean, I don't think people really realize my daughter had just turned 2. I mean, just turned 2. My boys were 6 weeks old. So, I mean, that alone is insane.
Yeah.
And on top of that, my husband's now in the hospital. On top of that, I now have to provide and take this hobby business to a capital B business. There was no time for me. There was no time for friends. It was just a constant state of survival. And also realizing that, the person I was closest to, who was my sister, died and was gone. And there was nothing that I could have done about that. And now the person who is closest to me, my husband, could very well die.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do everything that I can in my power, which is crazy because we don't have that power. But
Right.
I'm going to do everything I can to control as much as I can. And that really, it was all fear based. It was all fear based. And so I think it's interesting what really does drive some of these businesses. And so it really is a look behind the scenes of what, and then just I'm always really honest with my husband about things. We speak really honestly to each other. And I mean, just even things like, okay, well, what does it look like after you've not had sex for 2 years and then you have it again? Like,
Right.
what's that like? And what, I mean, and just everything and learning, after his physical body healed, then he goes through all the mental stuff, which I wasn't prepared for at all. I was just like, can you just be okay again? Like,
Right.
I'm sick of this, which is
Yeah.
a natural feeling. And so all that kind of stuff is in there. And then the comedy of just the kids at the time. And then, but even when I found out I was pregnant with twins, there was a dark moment there where I was like, I don't want this. I did not ask for this. Twins don't run in our family.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
but I believe, and for some reason I always believed, even in the darkest moments of all of that, I was like, this is preparing us for something else. And I don't know what that is. But I believe that this story is going to be used for good. We just have to get through it.
Mhm.
And it was about 2 months after we had really felt like that chapter had come to an end that I got kind of an offer for the book and was like, okay, let's do it. And it made sense to me. Like I felt like everything that I had done in my life up until that point had prepared me to write Sleeping with a Stranger. And I
Did
wrote it
you
I wrote it in a week.
What? I was going to say, did you ever see yourself as like being an author and doing a book tour and launching during a global pandemic? And
Well, no to that. Let me just say, but even that, I've had to really go, like this story is so much bigger than me. I'm able to say now, like, I'm able to look at this now as a story that we were given because we
Mhm.
were going to be brave enough to share it. And I really took that responsibility very seriously, which is why because I almost felt like we were given this story that we had to experience because I would be, able, I would have, figured out enough in business where I could get it out into the world, but also that my husband would be willing. Listen, I don't know any other 38-year-old man who would say, yeah, why don't you write a book about my most embarrassing moments like that? Yeah. About me having to wear a diaper and like, not wanting to live and stuff. Yeah, let's just put all that in a book. You know what I mean? And we live in a small town, so I don't know anyone else. So I give him a lot of, props for that. But I just really believed that. I thought this story was given to us, and now it's my responsibility to put it out as excellently as I know how to. And so that's what I did. And so even with this pandemic, I've thought, now, did this go the way we wanted it to go? Not at all.
Right?
But I believe this story is bigger than the pandemic. And I believe that it is going to get into the hands of the people that it needs to get into. And I believe in the power of a, hey, have you read this book? You need to read that. You'd really, I believe in that more than anything. And I think that that's what's going to happen.
So since you guys are from a small town in Arkansas, have things changed at all? Like, have people come up to you or like commented or like said things and you're like, did you just say that? Like, has that happened yet?
Well, we've been quarantined, most of it,
Right.
I mean, we've been, but what's interesting, what I didn't expect is, I expected a bunch of people that I didn't know to read it. And then of course their feedback is like, my gosh, thank you for putting into words the things that I feel, but I never knew how to put into words or whatever. But what I didn't expect is the people who know me to be a little, some of them have been so supportive and amazing. I've had a couple, I started to share this earlier, but like a mom friend of mine.
Oh yeah, that's right. We totally
sorry. Let's get back to that. She read it and she was like, I would see you like 4 days a week during that time. Like it just shows that you just never know what someone's really going through, even though you think, she was like, I knew Brian was sick and you would keep me posted and we did, but like, I just never knew all of that turmoil or like what you were really going through at home or like any of that. And it's like, yeah, because you don't share that in the waiting room of dance class. You know what I mean? Like you just don't do that. And I think that, for a couple of my really close friends, I think it was like close friends that I've had since childhood, I think it was really hard for them to read. And I didn't expect that. I expected them to read it and to be like proud of me.
Yeah.
And not that they weren't, but I think they were hurt too, that they didn't know more, that they had to read about it in a book along with everyone else. And that took a couple of conversations of just saying, do you understand that I could never verbally process this ever? The only way that this story was processed was through written words. Yep. And I guess I could have given it to you before I gave it to the world. That probably, but hindsight, if I could go back, I would. Yeah. I'd give it to them first and say, this is what's about to come out. But it's not because anything was said negatively about them. It was just that I think it was hard for them to read what I went through and they didn't know the depths of it. Right. When you have such close friends and they feel like they should know those things. And I get that. It would be, if the situation were reversed, I would probably feel the same way.
Right. But it's like, it reminds me of that show. Oh my gosh. Have you seen, I think it's Big Little Lies, Little Big Lies. And Reese and Nicole both live in Nashville and they have produced some amazing content together. And like, I don't really watch TV, but it's like there are some things on Netflix and Hulu that people will tell me like, oh my God, you have to watch this.
Right.
And one day I keep saying like, I'm just going to do a podcast talking about all of those shows that I binge watch in the background.
Right.
That taught me something.
Yeah.
And I feel like your book is like that. I don't know if you've seen it, but like these women are best friends, but they're with each other all the time. But they all have like their secret little lives going on.
Right. Totally.
And
we all do.
Yeah. And it's like, like you said, even with your friends, it's like, you don't want to go out to dinner and have drinks and like monopolize the conversation. And it's like, a tennis ball back and forth. And so we all just kind of hoard it up. And then like I've gotten that as well. Like if some people like listen to my podcast, or they'll happen to hear something and it's like, well, I didn't know that about you. I'm like, well,
I was just about to say that that's the worst. response that anyone can say is, well, I
Uh-huh.
didn't know that. Well, how come I didn't know that? Well, I didn't know. You know it now. Okay. Do you want to
Right.
know more? Then, but to say that, it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
it's totally a selfish statement, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I thought I was more important to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this really isn't about you. This is about my husband being sick or my sister being ill or whatever. Like, so I'm sorry you didn't know that, but can we get back to that? Or do we need to talk to you about how you're important or whatever? You know what I mean? I just think it's the
Right.
worst thing someone can say.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Well, and the thing is, it's like, my thing is like, well, don't get your feelings hurt. Like it's never come up before. Like I
Exactly.
don't sit around thinking about these things. Like if I'm talking to another individual like yourself, and it's like, we have something in common, it triggers something that happened 5 years ago, I might bring it up. Or and some people that I work with, they're like, you're so reckless, like you just say whatever comes to your mind and blah blah blah, and you don't strategically think about it. And I'm like, well, then you're gonna have to get the F over it, because that's just who I am, and I'm gonna say it. And if you don't like it, then turn off the podcast. Like, I don't
Right.
know what to tell you.
Right.
But you're the one listening to it. So, if you don't like it, sorry, but not sorry. Like, I'm just trying to be a real person and
Right.
help other people. But I love the way you're saying it so gracefully. Like, you've been given this script, and like you feel it's almost like your duty to get it out there and share it. And I'm going to get your book for my sister too, because I've been trying to inch her along. Of like, my brother and I are both published authors, and there's 3 kids, and I'm like, it would be so great if you would publish a book and share your story. And she's done so well. I mean, from being told by Vanderbilt you have roughly 6 months to live, to
Yes.
I mean, going on literally your 5.5, almost 6 years, is kind of like, and everything
Wonderful.
that she's gone through to stay alive.
Right.
That's very unconventional. Going to Russia and Moscow when she never had been on a plane before.
Mm.
I'm like, you can help so many people
Mhm.
who are just now starting to struggle with these things. You could probably save so many lives.
Right.
And like with your book, like I haven't even got to listen to it, but I can probably say, like, you've probably saved a lot of marriages, and you're gonna save a lot of marriages by like putting it out there and being raw and being real. So, we
Yeah.
always, like, when I put some things out, people are like, aren't you afraid of haters? Like, don't people say like really mean things? I'm like, yeah, but you know what? They're the ones listening to it. If they don't like it, they can turn it off, but you just have to
Right.
grow some thick skin.
Right.
And and be more gracious about the 90% of the people that you're helping. And like all the troll people that are negative, I'm like, they're just not part of my life, like,
Right.
at all. I'm like, don't let that in.
Absolutely.
Don't let that negativity in.
Absolutely.
But is your husband okay now? Like,
Yes,
did you
he's
all make
much better. He is
this
much better.
through? And
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, when you're reading it, you just will be like, oh my goodness. But, and I hope that it helps people with gut issues, because we really kind of, I mean, listen, it was once again just this drive to, I mean, I had a room full of doctors who wanted to take out my husband's colon, and I stood up and said no. And they said he doesn't need to be released, and I said I'm taking him. And I didn't listen. I'm not a doctor, I don't know anything, but I know how to go with my gut. And I know how, if something doesn't feel right, we gotta get up. And sometimes, basically what we did with the doctor's advice for about 6 months was killing my husband. And
Wow.
and so we kind of go through that, and you get to see it. And I think there's a lot of people out there who have gastro issues that, if they could read this and see, and I'm not saying you have what my husband had, I'm just saying that there are alternatives, or there's usually it's something so simple. It's something
Yes.
so simple that doesn't take all of this medicine and steroids and infusions. I mean, my husband was getting infusions weekly with cancer patients.
Wow.
And if we didn't have insurance, it would have cost us $40,000 a month. And I think, how
Gosh.
much did we pay to kill him? You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, like, it makes me sick at my stomach when I look
Yep.
back. So
Yep.
you can't always, you got to be your own advocate.
100%. And while we need doctors and doctors are amazing,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
and coming from healthcare, I will say it is a very corrupt system
Yes.
where money is going to deter and drive a decision for someone. And there, if you ask a doctor, like I'll never forget like being at Vanderbilt and my mother, who's like of the generation where if the doctor's like, go jump off the cliff and
Yep.
swim a few laps and
Like,
you'll be
which
cured, like
one?
she did it.
Yep.
And I'm like, no,
You're going to love this book so much. Oh my
I can't wait.
God.
I'm just like, mama, no, we're going to get some more opinions. We're going to dig deeper. Like it. And then at a very young age, like I saw a lot of people that were being released from the mental hospital that could like harm themselves, harm
Right.
other people, but their insurance was up and they just let
Yep.
them walk out the front door. And I'm
Yep.
like, I need to move out of Florida. This was in Florida. But then I started to realize, like, as I got older, like, that's everywhere. That's just
Right.
not Florida.
Right.
And it's really sad how corrupt our system is. Like, we need insurance, but the way that some of the doctors play into the game is, like you said, it is killing people. And my dad had throat cancer and he fought it and overcame it. And then a year or so went by and then his back started to hurt. And then we go get a back scan and the doctor's like, oh, the cancer's moved. It's back. It's moved to your lymph nodes. I'm like, he gets a scan every 6 to 8 weeks. Like, why the hell would you not catch that?
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, his insurance only pays for a scan of the neck, not of the torso. I'm like, why the fuck would you not tell us that?
Right.
Like, I would pay for it out of my pocket. But no one ever told us or gave us
Yes.
the option
Yes.
because they just assume that you're not going to self-pay for it. And I'm a short blonde. What do I know? Like, I'm
Right.
just the daughter driving him to,
Right.
and I'm like, no, there's much more behind this daughter and you don't know anything about me. So it's like, when you say you feel like, they were killing your, like, I feel like, again, everything happens for a reason, but I'm like, if we just would have known, my dad might still be here for today. And so it just, again, we need doctors, but anybody listening that if you have anything going on, like, don't take the first opinion, don't take the second opinion, don't take the third opinion, like, do your own research.
Yeah. Do the work.
Do the work, because if you want it bad enough and you fight for it bad enough, like, there are alternatives. There are other ways. And like, I mean, you're walking proof of it. My sister is, we call it rolling proof of it because, in her wheelchair.
Yes.
But it's so powerful to know that there are other ways to
Yes.
get help. You don't
And
always have to listen to the doctor.
I think when you can get really aligned with yourself, which is something that I really talk about in the last kind of part of the book, is, kind of finding myself again and really, there's a knowing inside of us. And if we can get still enough to listen to it, the knowing really knows the answers. And and I believe that we, especially women, we have that intuition. And just like I did at that doctor's office, I was like, no, I mean, I just don't believe that's right. I don't think you're supposed to take his colon out. I think we know a lot of times when we're in those doctor's appointments, sometimes we're like, this isn't reading right, or this is. And I think you've got to kind of do the work, but also listen to your gut and what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, and there's like, a fun, like, no pun intended, like, listen to your gut, like with the gastro doctor.
Totally.
Like, I can already like see the humor like swirling in my head.
Yes.
So I have like 2 hours left I try to listen to a book a week. And so I have like 2 hours left on this one. And I always try to finish one before I go on to the next one, just so I can like be fully present. And
Oh, you don't need to finish that one. Just start.
I know. I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk on the treadmill tonight and finish that. And then I'm going to like get this one and download this one. So it's fun to like know the story behind it, because it's like, knowing your drive and your passion around like just getting it done and like wanting to help so many people is incredible. So
thanks.
Thank you
Well,
for
I hope
everything
your
that
listeners
you've
pick
done.
it up. You can get it. It's called Sleeping with a Stranger. You can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever books are sold. But you can also go to sleepingwithastranger.com or jessicazimmerman.com and you can find it. But it is on Audible if you want to. You want this sweet accent voice reading it to you.
I love it.
You could go with that option.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and advocating for people who they think something's wrong with them, but the doctors just don't listen. And so I think that's like one of the strongest takeaways from this story. And you're an amazing, incredible woman, businesswoman, and just, wife, mom, and, person comes first is like finding yourself. So you're awesome, but I could talk to you all day. We're out of time, unfortunately.
Same. I could talk to you all day as well. We should do this. You're just
everybody
2 hours away. I need to just hang out.
I know. But everyone, thank you so much for listening today. Be sure to go, and if you love to read, get Jessica's book, Sleeping with a Stranger, and go get it on Audible if you're not a good reader like myself. Like, I'm trying to be a better reader, but like I really want to like absorb myself in the story. So go check it out. We'll put all of this in the show notes. And everyone who's listening, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you guys next week. Be sure to tune in to another episode of Business Unveiled. Have a great day. Bye.
Now that you have all the tools you need to conquer the world in GSD, just share this with your friends and your fellow GSD leaders, and be sure you're a subscriber so you never miss the juicy details of Business Unveiled. And you can ask Siri to listen to the latest episode, but you got to be a subscriber. Before I go, I have a huge favor to ask, and it would mean the world to me. While you're listening, snap a quick screenshot, post it to your Instagram story, tag me at GSDleader_, and share with me your top takeaway from this episode and how it relates to you. Until next time, remember, stay productive and profitable.
You've been listening to Business Unveiled with Angela Proffitt. Join us next time as we share our experiences to help you be more productive and profitable in your creative business. For more great resources, visit angelaproffitt.com.